By the time Harrison Blackwood realized what the 8-year-old girl had just revealed, his entire empire was about to crumble. The words she'd whispered in his backseat would destroy everything he'd spent 23 years building. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to that morning when Harrison thought he owned the world. The leather of his Bentley Mulsanne still held the scent of success. Harrison adjusted his Hermes tie in the rearview mirror, watching the city's skyline reflect in his steel-gray eyes. At 45, he commanded Blackwood Industries with the precision of a surgeon and the ruthlessness of a predator. His penthouse, his private jet, his reputation as the man who never lost. The intercom crackled. "Mr. Blackwood, the merger papers are ready for signature." "Perfect," he murmured, sliding into the driver's seat. Today would seal his acquisition of Riverside Community Center, prime real estate in the heart of downtown. The locals had fought him for months, but money always won. It always did. The engine purred to life as Harrison pulled out of his private garage. Steam rose from his coffee cup, mixing with the morning mist. He was reviewing the final contracts on his tablet when something made him look up. A small figure stood at the corner of 5th and Main. A little black girl, no more than 8, wearing a faded yellow dress and clutching a worn teddy bear. She was looking directly at his car with an intensity that made his skin crawl. Harrison slowed as he approached the intersection. The girl stepped forward, and for a moment, their eyes met through the windshield. Something flickered across her face. Recognition? No, that was impossible. Then she opened the rear door and climbed in. "Hey!" Harrison twisted around, his heart hammering. "What do you think you're?" "Shut up," the girl said quietly. The words hit him like ice water. Not because of their tone, but because of how familiar they sounded. Like an echo from a nightmare he'd spent decades trying to forget. "Listen, kid, I don't know what kind of game this is, but—" "I said shut up, Harrison." His blood turned to concrete. Nobody called him Harrison anymore. Not for 23 years. Not since. "You don't remember me, do you?" The girl's voice was steady, unnervingly calm. She was looking at him in the rearview mirror with eyes that seemed far too old for her face. Harrison's mouth went dry. "I don't know what you're talking about. Get out of my car. Now." "My name is Zara." She hugged the teddy bear tighter. "Zara Williams. And this used to be yours." She held up the bear. Harrison's vision blurred. The world tilted sideways as memories crashed over him like a dam breaking. A shabby apartment on the wrong side of town. His mother's night shifts at the diner. The smell of instant noodles and broken dreams. And Mr. Teddy, his constant companion through the hungry nights and the sound of his mother crying behind closed doors. "That's impossible," Harrison whispered. "I threw that away. I threw everything away when I—" He stopped himself, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. "When you changed your name from Harry Williams to Harrison Blackwood?" Zara's reflection watched him with those knowing eyes. "When you erased every trace of where you came from? When you pretended your mother never existed?" The merger documents scattered across his lap as Harrison's hands began to shake. How could she know? How could she possibly know? "You want to know how I know?" Zara asked as if reading his thoughts. "Because she was my grandmother. And she never stopped looking for you." The words hit Harrison like a physical blow. His mother. His mother had been, but that meant— "She died last week," Zara continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Cancer. She spent her last dollar trying to find you. Kept hoping you'd come back. Kept your room exactly the same for 23 years. Harrison couldn't breathe. The luxury car suddenly felt like a coffin. "No. No, that's not. I made sure there was no trail. I covered everything." "You covered everything except your heart." Zara leaned forward, and Harrison saw tears streaming down her young face. "She found you 3 months ago. Saw your picture in Forbes magazine. Recognized your eyes. Same eyes she kissed goodnight for 18 years before you decided being poor was too embarrassing." The world outside the Bentley became a blur. Harrison was spiraling, drowning in a past he'd murdered and buried. His mother. Dead. While he'd been acquiring companies and collecting trophies, she'd been dying alone. She was proud of you, Zara whispered. Even after everything. She had every article about your success pinned to her wall. She told me stories about little Harry who used to draw pictures of the house he'd buy her someday. Harrison's composure finally shattered. A sound escaped his throat that he didn't recognize. Part sob, part scream. The merger papers fell to the floor, forgotten. Where? His voice cracked. Where is she buried? Riverside Cemetery. Section D, Grave 247. Zara's words cut through him like glass. Right across the street from the community center you're about to destroy. The one where she volunteered every Sunday. Where she kept hoping you might walk through the door. Riverside Community Center. The building he was about to demolish. The site of his greatest triumph was built on the grave of his greatest shame. Harrison pulled over, his entire body shaking. He turned to face Zara fully for the first time. She looked exactly like his mother had at that age. The same defiant chin. The same eyes that held too much pain for someone so young. What do you want from me? He asked, defeated. Nothing you can buy, Zara replied. But maybe something you can give. She placed the teddy bear on the center console between them. Mr. Teddy, with his missing eye and threadbare fur. The keeper of secrets Harrison had tried so desperately to forget. She made me promise to find you. To tell you something. Harrison waited, afraid to breathe. She forgave you. Even though you broke her heart. Even though you never called. Even though you were ashamed of her. Zara's voice broke. She said love doesn't have conditions. And mothers don't have expiration dates. The words destroyed him. 23 years of armor gone. 23 years of building walls, meaningless. He was 8 years old again, crying in his mother's arms after another kid made fun of his second-hand clothes. Harrison reached for the bear with trembling fingers. The moment he touched it, he smelled her perfume. Cheap drugstore perfume that had meant more to him than all the wealth in the world. I can't undo what I've done, he whispered. No, Zara agreed. But you can decide what you do next. They sat in silence as Harrison's old life met his new one. The merger documents lay crumpled on the floor. His phone buzzed incessantly with calls from lawyers and investors. The empire he'd built was waiting. But for the first time in 2 decades, Harrison Blackwood didn't care about any of it. The community center, he said finally. Tell me about it. Zara's face lit up for the first time. It's where kids like us go after school. Kids whose parents work 3 jobs. Kids who need a safe place. She paused. Kids who need to know they matter. Harrison closed his eyes and saw himself at 8 years old, walking through those same doors while his mother worked double shifts to keep the lights on. The place that had been his sanctuary. The place he was about to erase from existence. The merger is worth $400 million, he said quietly. And how much is your soul worth? Zara asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. Harrison had spent his entire adult life running from Harry Williams, the poor kid from the wrong side of town. But sitting here, holding the bear that had comforted him through 1,000 nightmares, he realized something devastating. He wasn't Harrison Blackwood, Millionaire CEO. He was Harry Williams, a scared little boy who had lost his way home. Will you take me to her? He asked. Zara nodded. Harrison started the engine, but instead of heading to his office, he turned toward Riverside Cemetery. His phone continued buzzing. Investors were waiting. Contracts needed signatures. His empire demanded attention. He turned off the phone. The cemetery was smaller than he'd expected. Quieter. Harrison parked beside a rusted fence and followed Zara through rows of weathered headstones. His Italian leather shoes sank into the soft earth as they walked. Section D, Grave 247. The headstone was simple. Black granite with gold lettering. Sarah Williams. Beloved mother. 1952 to 2025. She never stopped believing. Harrison felt his knees in his $3,000 suit. The earth was still soft, recently disturbed. She'd been here, in this box, while he'd been in boardrooms planning her neighborhood's destruction. I'm sorry, Mama, he whispered, the childhood name feeling foreign on his lips. I'm so damn sorry. Zara sat beside him, her small hand finding his. They stayed like that as the sun climbed higher, two unlikely companions sharing a grief that spanned generations. What happened to your parents? Harrison asked eventually. Car accident 2 years ago. Grandma Sarah took me in. Zara's voice was steady, but Harrison caught the tremor underneath. Now it's just me and foster care. Something twisted in Harrison's chest. This child, his niece, was facing the same uncertain future he'd once known. The same fear, the same hunger, the same shame. But unlike him, she didn't have to face it alone. Harrison stood, brushing dirt from his knees. His reflection caught in the polished headstone, and for a moment, he saw two versions of himself. The man he'd become and the boy he'd abandoned. Zara, he said, how would you like to come live with your uncle? Her eyes widened. You mean it? I mean it. But I need to make something clear. Harrison looked across the street at the community center. Kids were already arriving for after-school programs, their laughter carrying on the morning breeze. I'm not Harrison Blackwood anymore. That man died today. I'm Harry Williams, Sarah Williams' son. And I've got some things to make right. The drive back to downtown took 30 minutes. Zara sat in the front seat now, Mr. Teddy buckled safely between them. Harrison's phone had been buzzing nonstop, but he ignored it. When they reached Blackwood Industries' glass tower, Harrison paused at the entrance. His name was etched in gold letters above the door. His legacy. His monument to forgetting. Wait here, he told Zara. The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt like ascending to his own execution. The merger team was waiting in the conference room, documents spread across the mahogany table like battle plans. $400 million in signatures. Harrison, his lead attorney, rushed over. Where have you been? The Riverside deal is ready to close. Just need your signature and... The deal's off, Harrison said quietly. The room went silent. I'm sorry, what? The attorney blinked. Off. Harrison, we've been working on this for 8 months. The investors will be disappointed. I understand. Harrison walked to the head of the table, looking at faces he'd known for years. Colleagues. Advisors. People who saw him as a profit margin with a pulse. Gentlemen, ladies, effective immediately, I'm dissolving the Riverside Community Center acquisition. Furthermore, I'm establishing the Sarah Williams Foundation with an initial endowment of $50 million. Its mission will be to support community centers serving underprivileged children. Chaos erupted. Voices overlapped. Phones rang. Someone mentioned fiduciary responsibility. Harrison watched it all with a strange sense of detachment. You can't do this. The attorney was red-faced. Your board will have you removed. Your shareholders will survive, Harrison interrupted. I'm also stepping down as CEO, effective today. I'm appointing Jennifer Martinez as interim CEO while the board searches for my replacement. More shouting. More threats. Harrison walked to the window and looked down at the street where a small girl in a yellow dress waited beside a teddy bear that had traveled through time to save his soul. This is insane, someone called out. You're having some kind of breakdown. We should call. My mother, Harrison said, and the room fell silent. You should call my mother. But you can't. Because she's dead. And I wasn't there. He turned to face them, these people who'd helped him build an empire on the grave of his conscience. How many of you know where you came from? Really know. Not the sanitized version you tell at cocktail parties, but the truth. The hunger. The shame. The nights you went to bed afraid. Silence. I built this company by forgetting who I was. By pretending my mother didn't exist. By convincing myself that success meant never looking back. Harrison's voice grew stronger. Today I learned that my mother died believing I was ashamed of her. And she was right. He walked to his desk and began emptying his personal items into a box. 23 years of awards and achievements reduced to a cardboard container. The woman who raised me, who worked 3 jobs to keep me fed, who believed in me when no one else would, I erased her like she never existed. And for what? Money? Status? The approval of people who see me as a balance sheet. Harrison picked up his nameplate. Harrison Blackwood, CEO. The name felt like a lie he'd told so often he'd forgotten it wasn't true. My real name is Harry Williams. My mother was Sarah Williams. She was a waitress, a house cleaner, and the strongest person I've ever known. And I'm going to spend whatever time I have left making sure her granddaughter never has to choose between love and success. The room remained silent as Harrison finished packing. His assistant appeared in the doorway, eyes wide with confusion. Mr. Blackwood, your car is here, and there's a child in the lobby asking for you. Send her up, Harrison said. And it's Mr. Williams now. When the elevator opened, Zara stepped out clutching Mr. Teddy. The executives stared at her like she was a visitor from another planet. A poor child in their tower of glass and gold. Harrison knelt down to her level. Ready to go home? Where's home? Zara asked. Harrison thought about his penthouse, cold and pristine and empty. Then he thought about his mother's apartment, small and warm and full of love. I don't know yet, he admitted, but we'll figure it out together. As they walked to the elevator, Zara tugged on his sleeve. Uncle Harry? The name hit him like sunlight after years in a cave. Yeah, Grandma Sarah would be proud of you today. The elevator doors closed on his old life. When they opened again, Harrison Blackwood was gone. In his place stood Harry Williams, a man who'd finally found his way home. 3 months later, Harry stood in the renovated Riverside Community Center, watching Zara help younger kids with their homework. The Sarah Williams Foundation had not only saved the building but transformed it into something beautiful. The walls were painted bright colors, filled with artwork from local children. The library had new books, the computers actually worked, and the kitchen served hot meals to anyone who needed them. Harry's former colleagues had predicted disaster. The company stock had taken a hit when news of his resignation broke. Some investors pulled out. Board members resigned in protest. But Blackwood Industries survived. Under Jennifer's leadership, it was actually thriving. Turns out treating employees like human beings instead of expendable resources was good for business. Who knew? Harry's personal wealth had taken a significant hit, but he discovered something interesting. He didn't miss the penthouse or the private jet or the respect that money bought. What he missed was the man he'd been before he'd learned to be ashamed of love. Mr. Williams? A young voice interrupted his thoughts. Harry turned to see a boy, maybe 10 years old, with holes in his shoes and hope in his eyes. My mom says you used to be rich. Like, really rich. Is that true? Harry smiled, looking at Zara bent over a math worksheet, her tongue poking out in concentration. Yeah, kid. I was rich once. But I'm wealthy now. The boy looked confused. What's the difference? Harry knelt down, eye level with the child whose story probably wasn't so different from his own. Rich is when you have money. Wealthy is when you have everything that money can't buy. As the afternoon sun streamed through the community center's windows, Harry Williams finally understood what his mother had been trying to teach him all along. Success wasn't about how far you could run from where you started. It was about how gracefully you could return home. That evening, Harry and Zara visited the cemetery again. It had become their routine, sharing stories with Sarah Williams about their day. Tonight, they brought flowers and news about the center. 147 kids signed up for summer programs, Zara told the headstone. And the teenagers started a job training program. They're learning to fix computers and stuff. Harry added his own update. The foundation approved grants for 3 more community centers in other cities. We're calling them Sarah's houses. They sat in comfortable silence as darkness settled around them. Zara had grown taller in the past 3 months, more confident. She was thriving in her new school, making friends, sleeping peacefully for the first time since her parents' death. Harry had changed too. The stress lines around his eyes had softened. His hair was growing out, losing the sharp corporate cut. He'd started wearing jeans on weekends and had learned to cook pancakes the way his mother used to make them. Uncle Harry? Zara's voice was thoughtful in the gathering dusk. Yeah. Do you think Grandma Sarah can see us now? Harry looked at the headstone, then at the community center across the street where lights were still on in the windows. Kids were finishing homework, getting help with problems, finding the same sanctuary he'd once found there. I think she's been watching all along, he said. I think she sent you to save me. I didn't save you, Zara protested. You saved yourself. Harry smiled, pulling his niece closer. Mr. Teddy sat between them, keeper of old secrets and new beginnings. We saved each other, he said. As they walked back to the car, Harry's reflection caught in the cemetery gate. But this time, he didn't see two versions of himself. He saw one man, whole at last, carrying the best parts of both Harry Williams and Harrison Blackwood into whatever came next. His phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer at the company. Good news about quarterly earnings. Harry smiled and put the phone away without reading the details. Some things were more important than profit margins. Some victories couldn't be measured in dollars. And some journeys home took a lifetime to complete. But they were always worth it. The little girl in the yellow dress had taught a millionaire CEO the most valuable lesson of all. You can't buy your way out of who you really are. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly who you're meant to be. Zara climbed into the front seat and buckled her seatbelt, Mr. Teddy secure in her arms. What are we having for dinner? How about pancakes? Harry suggested, starting the engine. With extra syrup? With extra syrup. As they drove away from the cemetery, Harry caught sight of his mother's headstone one last time in the rearview mirror. The inscription glowed briefly in his headlights. She never stopped believing. And for the first time in 23 years, neither did he. The end wasn't really an ending at all. It was a beginning. Harry Williams was finally home,